Padme Hum, Om Mani 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 Padme Hum.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for starting late. We'll begin with the refuge prayers, as well as the four immeasurables, and then the Heart Sutra mantra. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge till enlightenment. By virtue of giving and the like, I shall reach Buddha, who to 8 means. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge till enlightenment. By virtue of giving and the like, I shall reach Buddha, who to 8 means. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge till enlightenment. By virtue of giving and the like, I shall reach Buddha, who to 8 means. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far, according to the intelligence and predisposition of each tree. We are sent you turn the Dharma wheel of great, low, and common vehicles. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tajata Om Gati Gati Para Gati Para Samgati Bodhisvaha. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhisva. Good evening and welcome everyone. Well, Zooming, thank you very much for your being here together with everyone. And I have the privilege to read through the Vishuddhimagga, a very famous Buddhist classic from the Theravadin tradition. And since we are of one same tradition, that follower of the teachings of the Buddha, it is very important we should become familiarized with some important texts and books that are revered by other traditions. So that's why we are focusing on this. Last few sessions we were reading, and so I'll continue. The paragraph number 100. And as the Patimoksha restraint, meaning the individual liberation vows, restraint is undertaken out of faith. So restraint of the sense faculty should be undertaken with mindfulness. As for that is accomplished by mindfulness, because when the sense faculties functions are founded on mindfulness, there's no liability to invasion of covetousness and the rest. So, recollecting the fire discourse, which begins thus, better bhikshus, the extirpation of the eye faculty of a red-hot iron-burning, glowing iron spike, then the apprehension of signs of particulars of visible object, cognizable by the eye. This restraint should be properly undertaken by preventing, with unremitting mindfulness, any apprehension in the objective fields consisting of visible data, etc., of any signs, etc., likely to encourage covetousness, desire, and so on, to invade the consciousness occurring in connection to the eye, door, and so on. So, talking about guarding your sense doors, I was using the analogy of putting a fly screen in our home. Want any flies coming in our way. So when you have a self-restraint, then we are actually able to guard our sense doors. When not undertaking thus, virtue of pratimoksha, I mean, if the one does not practice, exercise that self-restraint, then the virtue or discipline of self-liberation, pratimoksha restraint, is unenduring, means wouldn't last. It does not last like a crop not fenced in with branches. And it is raided by the robber defilements, as a village with open gates is by thieves. And lust leaks into his mind to rain, as rain does into a badly roofed house. For this is said, among the visible objects, sounds and smells and tastes and tangibles, guard the faculties. For when the doors are open and unguarded, the thieves will come and raid as there were a village. And just as with an ill-roofed house, the rain comes leaking in, so too will lust come leaking in, for sure, upon an undeveloped mind. So this is quoted from Theravadin Nikayas, one of the very long sutras. When it is undertaken thus, the virtue of pratimoksha, that is self-discipline, restraint is enduring. It lasts like a crop well fenced in with branches, and it is not raided by the robber defilements. As a village, its well guarded gates is not by thieves, and lust does not leak into the mind. Rain does not into a well roofed house. For this is said, among the visible objects, sounds, smells, and tastes and tangibles, guard the faculties. For when these doors are closed and truly guarded, thieves will not come in and raid there were a village. Just as with a well-roofed house, no rain comes leaking in, so too no lust comes leaking in for sure upon a well-roofed mind. This is quoted from the same root
Sutra, the Digha Nikaya. This, however, is a teaching at its very highest. This mind is called quickly transformed. So restraint of the sense faculty should be undertaken by removing arisen lust with the contemplation of foulness, as was done by Elder Vangisa soon after he had gone forth. As the elder was wandering for alms, it seems, soon after going forth, lust arose in him on seeing a woman. Thereupon he said to the Venerable Ananda, I am afire with sensual lust, and burning flames consume my mind. In pity, tell me, Gautama, how to extinguish it for good. The elder said, You do perceive mistakenly that burning flames consume your mind. Look for no sign of beauty there, for that is which leads to lust. See foulness there, and keep your mind harmoniously concentrated. Formation see as alien, as ill, not self, so these great lusts may be extinguished, and for no more take fire thus ever and again. The elder expelled his lust and then went on with his arms around. Moreover, a bhikshu who is fulfilling restraint of the faculties should be like the elder Chittagutta, resident of great cave at Kurandaka, and like the elder Mahamita, resident of the great monastery of Choedak. In the great cave of Kurandaka, it seems, there was a lovely painting of a renunciation of the 7 Buddhas. A number of bhikshu wandering about among the dwellings saw the painting there and said, What a lovely painting, Venerable Sir. The Venerable said, For more than 60 years, friends, I have lived in a cave and did not know whether there was any painting there or not. Now today I know it through those who have eyes. The elder, it seems though he has lived there for long, but never raised his eyes and looked up at the cave. And at the door of his cave there was a great ironwood tree, and the elder had never looked at it either. He knew it was a flower when he saw its petals on the ground each year. The king heard of the elder's great virtue, and he sent for him 3 times, desiring to pay homage to him. When the elder did not go, he had the breasts of all the women with infants in the town bound and sealed off, saying, As long as elder does not come, let the children go without milk. Out of compassion for the children, the elder went to Mahagama. When the king heard that he had come, he said, Go and bring the elder in, I shall take precepts. Having had him brought up into an inner place, he paid homage to him and provided him with a meal. Then saying, Today, Venerable Sir, there is no opportunity, I shall take precepts tomorrow. He took the elder's bowl. After following him for a while, he paid homage with the queen and turned back. At 7 days went by thus, whether it was the king who paid homage or whether it was the queen. The elder said, May the king be happy. Bhikshu asked, Why is it, Venerable Sir, that whether it is the king who pays a homage or the queen you say, May the king be happy? The elder replies, I do not notice whether it is the king or the queen. At the end of the 7 days, when it was found that the elder was not happy living there, he was dismissed by the king. He went back to the great cave at Kuranda. When it was night, he went out onto his walk. A deity who dwelt in the ironwood tree stood by with a torch of sticks. Then his meditation subject became quite clear and plain. The elder, thinking, How clear my meditation subject is today, was glad, and immediately after the middle watch he reached arhatship, making the whole rock resound. So when another clansman seeks his own good, let him not be hungry-eyed, like the monkey in the groves, like the wild deer in the woods, like the nervous little child. Let him go with eyes downcast, seeing a plough's yoke's length before, that he fall not in the power of the forest monkey mind. The elder Mahamita's mother was sick with poisoned tumor. She told her daughter, who as a bhikshuni had also gone forth, "Lady, go to your brother, tell him my trouble and bring back some medicine." She went and told him. The elder said, "I do not know how to gather root medicine and such things and concoct the medicine for them, but rather I'll tell you a medicine. Since I went forth, I have not broken my virtue of restraint of sense faculties by looking at the bodily form of opposite sex with a lustful mind. By this declaration of truth may my mother get well. Go and tell the lay devotee and rub her body." She went and told her what had happened, and then did as she had been instructed. At the very moment the lay devotee's tumor vanished, shrinking away like a lump of froth. She got up and uttered a cry of joy. If the fully enlightened one were still alive, why should he not stroke with his net-adorned hand the head of bhikshu like my son? So let another noble clansman gone forth in the dispensation keep as did the elder Mita, perfect faculty restraint. As restraint of the faculty is to be undertaken by means of mindfulness, as livelihood purification is to be undertaken by means of energy, for that is accomplished by energy, because the abandoning of wrong livelihood is effected in one who has a rightly applied energy, abandoning therefore unbefitting wrong search. This should be undertaken with energy by means of right kind of search, consisting of going on alms round, etc., avoiding what is of impure origin as though it were a poisonous snake, and using only requisites of pure origin. Herein, one who has not taken up the ascetic practices and any requisite obtained from the community, from a group of bhikshus, or from a layman who has confidence in his special quality of teaching the Dhamma, etc., are called of pure origin. But those obtained on alms rounds, etc., are extremely pure origin. For one who has taken up ascetic practices, those obtained on alms rounds, etc., and as long as this is in accordance with the rules of the ascetic practices, from people who have confidence in his special qualities of asceticism, are called of pure origin. And if he has not putrid urine with mixed gall nuts and forsweets for the purpose of curing certain affliction, he eats only the broken gall nuts, thinking other companions in the life of purity will eat the forsweets. His undertaking of the ascetic practices is befitting, for he is then called bhikkhu, who is supreme in the noble one's heritage. Paragraph 113. As to the robe and other requisites, no hint, indication, roundabout talk, or intimation about robes or alms food is allowable for a bhikshu who is purifying his livelihood. But a hint, indication, and roundabout talk about resting place is allowable for one who has not taken up an ascetic practices. Herein, a hint is when one is getting the preparing of a ground, etc., done for the purpose of making a resting place, is asked, "What is being done, Venerable Sir? Who is having it done?" He replies, "No one," or any other such giving of hints. And an indication is saying, "Lay follower, where do you live?" In a mention, Venerable Sir, but the lay follower I mentioned is not allowed for bhikshus, or any other such giving of indication. Roundabout talk is saying the resting place for the community bhikshu is crowded, or other such oblique talk. All, however, is allowed in the case of medicine. When the disease is cured, is it or is it not allowed to use the medicine obtained in his way? Herein, the Vinaya specialists say that the opening has been given by the Blessed One, therefore it is allowable. But the Sutanta specialists is the people who are literalists of the sutra, say that though there is no offense, nevertheless the livelihood is sullied, therefore it is not allowable. But one who does not use hints, indication, roundabout talk, or intimation, though these are permitted by the Blessed One, and he who depends only on the special quality fewness of the wishes, etc., and makes use only of requisites obtained otherwise than by indication, etc., even when he thus risks his life, is called supreme in living in effacement, like the Venerable Shariputra. It seems that the Venerable One was cultivating seclusion at one time, living on a certain forest with the elder Moggallana. One day, an affliction of a colic arose in him, causing him great pain. In the evening, the elder Moggallana went to attend upon him. Seeing him lying down, he asked what the reason was, and he asked, "What used to make you better formerly, friend?" The elder said, "When I'm a layman, friend, my mother used to mix ghee, honey, sugar, and so on, and give me rice gruel and pure milk. That used to make me better." Then the other said, "So be it, friend. If either you or I have married, perhaps tomorrow we shall get some." Now a deity who dwelt in a tree at the end of the walk overheard this conversation. Thinking, "I will find rice gruel for the Lord tomorrow," he went meanwhile to the family who was supporting the elder, and entered into the body of the elder son, causing him discomfort. Then he told the assembled relatives the price of the cure. "If you prepare rice gruel of such a kind tomorrow for the elder, I will set this one free." They said, "Even without being told by you, we regularly supply the elder's needs." And on the following day, they prepare rice gruel of the kind needed. The elder Moggallana came in the morning and said, "Stay here, friend, till I come back from the alms round." Then he went into the village. Those people met him. They took his bowl, filled it with the stipulated kind of rice gruel, and gave it back to him. The elder made as though to go, but they said, "Eat, Venerable Sir, we shall give you more." When the elder had eaten, they gave him another bowlful. The elder left, bringing the alms food to the Venerable Shariputra. He said, "Here, friend Shariputra, eat." When the elder saw it, he thought, "The gruel is very nice. How was it got?" And seeing how it had been obtained, he said, "Friend, the alms food cannot be used." This is Shariputra, very, very strict, because the way it was got, yeah. Instead of thinking he does not eat alms food brought by the likes of me, the other once took the bowl by the rim and turned it over on one side. As the rice gruel fell on the ground, the elder one's affliction vanished. From then on, it did not appear again during 45 years. Yeah, incredible. How then he said to the Venerable Moggallana, "Friend, even if one's bowel come out and trail on the ground, it is not fitting to eat gruel got by verbal intimation." Incredible. And he uttered the exclamation, "My livelihood might well be blamed if I were to consent to eat. The honey and the gruel obtained by influence of verbal hints, and even by my bowel obstrude the trail outside, and even though my life is to be jeopardized, I will not blot my livelihood, for I will satisfy my heart by shunning all wrong kinds of search, and never will I undertake the search the Buddhas have condemned." 122. And here too should be told the story of Elder Mahatissa, the mango eater who lived in Chiragumba. So in all respects, a man who has gone forth in faith should purify his livelihood, and seeing clearly give no thought to any search that is not good. 123. And as livelihood purification is not to be undertaken by means of energy, so virtue dependent on requisites is to be undertaken by means of understanding. For it is accomplished by understanding, because one who possesses understanding is able to see advantages and danger in requisites. So one should abandon greed for requisites and undertake that virtue by using requisites obtained lawfully by properly and properly after reviewing them with understanding of the way aforesaid. Herein, reviewing is of the two kinds, at the time of receiving the requisites and at the time of using them. For use is blameless in one who at the time of receiving robes, etc., reviews them either as mere elements or as a repulsive, or puts them aside for later use, and in one who reviews them thus at the time of using them. Here is an explanation to settle the matter. There are four kinds of use: use as theft, use as debt, use as inheritance, and use as a master. Herein, use by one who is unvirtuous and makes use of requisites, even sitting on the midst of the community, is called use by theft. Use without reviewing by one who is virtuous is used by debt, used as a debt. Therefore, the robe should be reviewed every time it is used, and alms food lump by lump. One who cannot do this should review it before the meal, after the meal, and in the first watch, in the middle watch, and in the last watch. If dawn breaks on him without having reviewed it, he finds himself in the position of one who has used it as a debt. Also, the resting place should be reviewed each time when it's used. Recourse to mindfulness, both in the accepting and use of medicine, is proper. But while this is so, though there is an offense for one who uses it without mindfulness, after mindfulness acceptance, there is no offense for one who is mindful in using after accepting without mindfulness. 126. Purification is of four kinds: purification by the teaching, by restraint, by search, and by reviewing. Herein, the virtue of pratimoksha restraint is called purification by the teaching, for that is so called virtue it purified by means of teaching. Virtue of restraint of faculties is called purification of restraint, for that is so called because it purified by means of restraint in the mental resolution, I shall not do so again. Virtue of livelihood purification is called purification by search, for that is called because search is purified in one who abandons wrong search and gets requisites lawfully and properly. Virtue dependent on requisites is called purification by reviewing, for that is so called because it purified by reviewing of the kinds of already described. Hence it was said above, there is no offense for one who is mindful in using after accepting without mindfulness. 127. The use of requisites by seven kinds of trainers is called use as an inheritance. For they are the Buddha's sons, therefore they make use of requisites as the heirs of the requisite belonging to their father. But how then is it the Blessed One's requisites or the laity's requisites that are used? Although given by the laity, they usually belong to the Blessed One, because it is by the Blessed One that they are permitted. That is why it should be understood that the Blessed One's requisites are used. The confirmation here is in the Dhammadadaya Sutra. Used by those whose cankers are destroyed is called use as the master, for they make use of them as masters because they have escaped the slavery of craving. 128. As regards these kinds of use as a master and use as an inheritance are allowable for all. Use as a debt is not allowable, to say nothing of use as theft. But this use of what is reviewed by one who is virtuous is use freed from debt, because it is opposite of use as a debt, or it is included in the use as an inheritance too. For one possessed of virtue is called the trainer too, because of possessing this training. As regards these three kinds of use, since use as a master is best, when a bhikshu undertakes virtue dependent on requisites, he should aspire to that and use them after reviewing them in the way described. And thus it is said. Now, all of that is a description of these following verses. The truly wise disciple who listens to the Dharma as taught by the Sublime One makes use, after reviewing, of alms food and of the dwelling and of resting place and of the water for washing dirt and robes. So, like a drop of water lying on the leaves of lotuses, a bhikshu is unsullied by any of these matters, by alms food and by dwelling and by resting place and also by water for washing dirt from robes. Since aid it is and timely procure from another, the right amount he reckons, mindful without remitting, in chewing and in eating, in tasting food. Besides, he treated it as an ointment applied upon a wound. So, like the child's flesh in the deserts, like the greasing for the axle, he should eat without delusion nutriment to keep alive. This sentiment is expressed in Nagarjuna's writing when he talks about, in the letter to a friend, why we should take the food as a medicine for hunger, not for anything else. And in connection with fulfilling of this virtue dependent on the requisite, there should be told a story of the novice Sangarakshita, the nephew. For he made use of requisites after reviewing, recording, as it is said. Seeing me eat a dish of rice, quite cold, my preceptor observed. Novice, if you are not restrained, be careful not to burn your tongue. On hearing my preceptor's words, I then and there felt urged to act, and sitting on a single session, I reached the goal of Arhathood. Since I am now waxed full in thought, like the full moon of the 15th, and all my cankers are destroyed, there is no more becoming now. And so should any other man aspiring to end suffering make use of all the requisites wisely after reviewing them. So virtue is of four kinds, as a virtue of pratimoksha, restraint, and so on. 131. In the first pentad of the fivefold section of meaning should be understood in accordance with the virtue of those not fully admitted to the order, and so on. For it is said in the Patimoksha, what is virtue consisting in limited purification? That is of training precepts for those who not fully attain to the order. Such is the virtue consisting in limited purification. B. What is virtue consisting in unlimiting purification? That of the training precepts for those fully admitted to the order. Such is virtue consisting in unlimited purification. C. What is the virtue consisting in fulfilled purification? That of magnanimous ordinary man devoted to the profitable things, who are perfecting the course that ends in trainership, regardless of the physical body and life, having given up attachment to life. Such is virtue fulfilled purification. D. What is virtue consisting in virtue purification not adhere to? That of 7 kinds of trainer, who such is virtue consisting in purification not adhere to. E. What is virtue consisting in tranquilized purification? That of the perfect one's disciple with cankers destroyed, of the undeclared enlightened ones, of the perfect ones accomplished and fully enlightened. Such is virtue consisting in tranquilized purification. 132. Herein, the virtue of those fully admitted to the order should be understood as virtue consisting in limited purification, because it is limited to the number of training precepts, that is 5 or 8 or 10. B. That of those fully admitted to the order is described thus: 9,000 million and 180 million as then as well, and 50 plus 100,000 and 36 again to swell, total restraint disciplines. These rules of the enlightened one explains told under heads of the filling out which the disciplined restraint contains. So, although limited in number, 47, it should be yet be understood as virtue consisting in unlimited purification, since it is undertaken without reserve and has no obvious limits such as gain, fame, relatives, limbs, or life. And like the virtue of the elder Mahatissa and the mango eater who lived in Chiragumba, 122 as we discussed above. For that venerable one, the venerable one never abandoned the following good men's recollection. Wealth for a sound limb's sake should be renounced, and one who guards his life gives up his limbs. The wealth and limbs and life, each one of these, a man gives up who practice the Dhamma. So this is talking pure renunciation. And never transgress a training precept even when his life was in the balance and in the way be reach arhatship with the same virtue of unlimited purification as his support while he was being carried on a lay devotee's back according to as it is said. Know your mind, know your father, know your relatives and kin have done as much as this for you because you are possessed of virtue. So stirred by urgency and wisely, comprehending with insight, while carried on his helper's back, he reached the goal of arhatship. 134. The magnanimous ordinary man's virtue, which from the time of admission to the order is devoid even of the stain of a wrong thought, because of its extreme purity, like a gem of pure water, like a well-refined gold, become the proximate cause for arhatship itself, which is why it is called consisting of fulfilled purification, like that of elder Sangharakshita great and the Sangharakshita the nephew. The elder Sangharakshita great, Mahasangita, aged over 60, was lying, and it seems, on his deathbed. The order of bhikshus questioned him about attainment of the supermundane state. And the elder said, I have no supermundane state. Then the young bhikkhu who was attending on him said, Venerable sir, people have come as much as 12 leagues, thinking that you have reached Nibbana. It will be disappointing for many if you die as an ordinary man. Friend, thinking to see the Blessed One Maitreya, I did not try for insight. So help me to sit up and give me the chance. He helped the elder sit up and went out. As he went out, the elder reached arhatship and he gave a sign by snapping his fingers. The order assembled and said to him, Venerable sir, you have done a difficult thing in achieving supermundane state in an hour of death. This was not difficult, friends, but rather I'll tell you what is difficult. Friends, I see no action done by me without mindfulness and unknowingly since the time I went forth. His nephew also reached arhatship in the same way at the age of 50 years. 136. Now, if a man has a little learning, and he is careless of his virtue, they censure him on both accounts for lack of virtue in learning. But if he is of little learning, yet he is careful of his virtue, they praise him for his virtue, so it is as though he too had learning. So this comparison with the academic knowledge with the pure, sincere discipline, talking about importance of discipline, even you're so well versed in the academic kind of sense, if you don't have discipline, then it's pretty superfluous. But if you have good discipline, and even if you don't have any of the academic knowledge, it still outshines. That's what the reading is. And if he is of ample learning, yet he is careless on his virtue, they blame him for his virtue. It is as though he had no learning. But if he is of ample learning, but he is careful of a virtue, they give him praise on both accounts for virtue as well as learning. Sometimes they talk about 9 qualities. So here these 2 qualities are very, very complementary. Buddha's a pupil of much learning, who keeps the law with understanding, a jewel in the Jambu river's gold. Who is here fit to censure him? Deities praise him constantly. By Brahma also is praise. So that comes from Anguttara Nikaya. Number 137, what should be understood as a virtue consisting in purification not adhered to is trainer's virtue, because it is not adhered to by false views, and ordinary man's virtue because ordinary man's virtue when not adhered to by greed. Like the virtue of Elder Tisa, the landowner's son. Wanting to become established in arhatship, in dependence on such virtue, this venerable one told his enemies, I broke the bones of my both legs to give the pledge you ask from me. I am revolted and ashamed at death accompanied by greed. And after I had thought on this and wisely then applied insight, when the sun rose and shone on me, I had become arhat. 138. Also there was a certain senior elder who was very ill and unable to eat with his own hand. He was writhing, smeared with his own urine and excrement. Seeing him a certain young bhikkhu said, "Oh, what a painful source life is." The senior elder told him, "If I were to die now, friend, I should obtain the bliss of heaven. I have no doubt of that. But the bliss obtained by breaking this virtue would be like the lay state obtained by disavowing the training." And he added, "I shall die together with my virtue." And he lay there. He comprehended the same illnesses with insight, and he reached arhatship. Having done so, he pronounced these verses to the order of bhikshus. I am victim of sickening disease that racks me with its burden of cruel pain, as flowers in the dust burned by sun. So this my corpse will soon have withered up. Unbeautified, called beautiful, unclean, while reckoned as if clean, though full of order seeming fair, to him that can not see is clear. So out upon this ailing, rotting body, fetid and filthy, punished with affliction, doting on which this silly generation has lost the way to be reborn in heaven. 139. It is virtue of the arhants, etc., that should be understood by tranquilized purification, because of the tranquilization of all disturbance and because of purifiedness. So it is of 5 kinds of consisting in limited purification and so on. 140. In the second penta, the meaning should be understood as the abandoning, etc., of killing living beings, etc. For this is said in the Patisambhida. 5 kinds of virtue are: 1. In case of killing living things, abandoning is virtue, abstention is virtue, and volition is virtue, restraint is virtue, non-transgression is virtue. In the case of taking what is not given, in the case of sexual misconduct, 4. In the case of false speech, 5th in the case of malicious speech, 6 in the case of harsh speech, 7 in the case of gossip, 8 in the case of covetousness, 9 in the case of ill will, and 10 in the case of wrong view, etc. 11 through renunciation in the case of lust, abandoning the virtue. 12 through non-ill will in the case of ill will. 13 through perception of light in the case of stiffness and torpor. 14 through non-distraction and agitation. 15 through definition of states of Dhamma, uncertainty. 16 through knowledge, ignorance. 17 through gladdening in the case of boredom. 18 through the first jhana in the case of hindrances, abandoning the virtue. 19 through second jhana applied through sustained thought. 20 through the third jhana, happiness. 21 through the fourth jhana in the case of pleasure and pain, abandoning the virtue. 22 through the attainment of the base consisting of boundless space in the case of perception of matter, perception of resistance, and perception of variety, abandoning the virtue. 23 through the attainment of base consisting of boundless consciousness in the case of perception of the base consisting of boundless space. 24 through the attainment of the base consisting of nothingness in the case of perception of the base consisting of boundless consciousness. 25 through the attainment of the base consisting of neither perception nor non-perception in case of perception of the base consisting of nothingness. 26 through the contemplation of impermanence in the case of perception of impermanence, abandoning is virtue. 27 through the contemplation of pain in the case of perception of pleasure. 28 through the contemplation of non-self in the case of perception of self. 29 through the contemplation of dispassion in the case of perception of delighting. 30 through the contemplation of the fading away of in the case of the greed. 31 through the contemplation of cessation in the case of originating. 32 through the contemplation of relinquishment in the case of grasping. 33 through the contemplation of distraction in the case of perception of compactness, abandoning the virtue. 34 through the contemplation of fall of information in the case of accumulation of karma. 35 through the contemplation of change in the case of the perception of lastingness. 36 through the contemplation of the signless in the case of sign. 37 through the contemplation of desireless in the case of desire. 38 through the contemplation of voidness in the case of misinterpreting insistence. 39 through insight into states, that is higher understanding in the case of misinterpreting insistence due to grasping. 40 through correct knowledge in the and the vision in the case of misinterpreting insistence due to confusion. 31 through the contemplation of danger in the case of misinterpreting insistence due to the reliance on information. 42 through the reflection in the case of non-reflection. 43 through the contemplation of running away in the case of misinterpreting insistence due to bondage. 44 through the path of stream entry in the case of defilements coefficient with false view, abandoning virtue. 45 through the path of one's returner in the case of gross defilements. 46 through the path of non-returner in the case of residual defilements. 47 through the path of arahantship in the case of all defilements, abandoning virtue, abstention of virtue, volition of virtue, restraint of virtue, non-transgression is virtue. Such virtues lead to non-remorse in the mind, to gladdening, to happiness, to tranquility, to joy, to repetition, to development, to cultivation, to embellishment, to the requisites of for the concentration, to the requisites of concentration, to fulfillment, to complete dissipation, to fading away, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So all of those 47. 141 paragraph. And here there is no state called abandoning other than the non-arising of killing of living beings, etc., as stated. But the abandoning of given unprofitable state upholds 51 a given profitable state in the sense of providing foundation for it and concentrates it by preventing by wavering. So it is called virtue in the sense of composing, reckoned as upholding and concentrating as stated earlier. The four other things aforementioned refer to the presence of occurrence of will as abstention from such and such, as restraint from such and such, as volition associated with both of these, and as non-transgression in one who does not transgress such and such. But their meaning of virtue has been explained already. So it is the 5 kinds of virtue consisting in abandoning and so on. 142. At this point, the answers to the question, what is virtue, In what sense is it virtue? What are the characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause? What are the benefits of virtue? How many kinds of virtue are there are complete? 143. Here, however, it was also asked, what is the defiling of it, and what is cleansing of it? We answer that virtues, tornness, etc., is it defiling, and that it's untornness, etc., it is cleansing. Now that tornness, etc., is comprised under the breach that has gain, fame, etc., as its cause under the 7 bonds of sexuality. When a man has broken the training course at the beginning or at the end in any instance of 7 classes of offenses, his virtue is called torn, like a cloth that is cut at the edge. But when he is broken, it is in the middle. It is called rent, like a cloth that is rent in the middle. But when he's broken it twice or thrice in succession, it is called blotched, like a cow whose body is some such color as black or red, with a discrepant color appearing on the back and or in the belly. When he has broken it all over at intervals, it's called mottled, like a cow specked all over with the discrepant colored spots as intervals. This is the first place in how there comes to be tornness with the breach that has gain, etc., as its cause. 144. And likewise with the 7 bonds of sexuality, for this is said by the Blessed One. Here a Brahmin, some ascetic or a Brahmin, claims to lead a life of purity rightly, for he does not enter into actual sexual intercourse with women, yet he agrees to massage, manipulation, bathing, and rubbing down by women. He enjoys it, desires it, takes satisfaction in it. That is what is torn, rent, blotched, and mottled in one who leads the life of purity. This man is said to lead a life of purity that is unclean, and as one who is bound by the bond of sexuality, he will not be released from birth, aging, and death. He will not be released from suffering. I say, therefore, furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he jokes, plays, amuses himself with women. Furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he gazes and stares at women eye to eye. Furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he listens to the sounds of women through a wall or through a fence as they laugh or talk or sing or weep. Furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he recalls laughs and talks and games that he formerly had with women. Furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he sees householder or householder son possessed of, endowed with, and indulging the 5 chords of sense desire. Furthermore, Brahmin, while he does not agree to these things, yet he leads to life of purity, aspiring to some order of deity, thinking through this right virtue or this ritual vow of this asceticism, I shall become great deity or some lesser deity. He enjoys it, desires it, takes satisfaction in it. This Brahmin is what is torn, rent, blotched, and mottled in one who leads the life of purity. This man will not be released from suffering, I say. This is how tornness, etc., should be understood as included under the breach that has gain, etc., as its cause under the 7 bonds of sexuality. The untornness, 151. Untornness, however, is accomplished by the complete non-breaking of the training precept, by making amends for those broken in, for which amends should be made, by the absence of the 7 bonds of sexuality, and as well by the non-arising of such evil things as anger, enmity, contempt, domineering, envy, avarice, deceit, fraud, obduracy, presumption, pride, conceit, haughtiness, vanity, and negligence, and by the arising of such qualities of fewness of wishes, contentment, and effacement. 152. Virtue not broken in the purpose of gain, etc., rectified by means by making amends after being broken by the faults and negligence, etc., and not damaged by the bonds of sexuality and by such evil things as anger or enmity, are called entirely untorn, unrent, unblotched, and unmottled. And those same virtues are liberating, since they bring about the state of free men, and praised by the wise, since it is by the wise they are praised, the unadhered to, since they are not adhered to by means of craving and views, and conducive to concentration, since they conduce to access concentration or to absorption concentration. That is why their untornness, etc., should be understood as cleansing. 153. The cleansing comes about in two ways. Through seeing the danger of failure in virtue, through seeing the benefit of perfected virtue. Here in the danger of failure in virtue can be seen in accordance with such sutras as that beginning, Bhikkhu, there are these 5 dangers for the non-unvirtuousness of the failure of virtue. 154. Furthermore, on account of his unvirtuousness, unvirtuous person is displeasing to deities and human beings, is uninstructable by his fellows in the life of purity, suffers when unvirtuousness is censured, and is remorseful when the virtues are praised. Owing to that unvirtuousness, he is as ugly as hemp cloth. Contact with him is painful because those who fall in with his views are brought to long-lasting suffering in the states of loss. He is worthless because he causes no great fruit to accrue to those who give him gifts. He is as hard to purify as Cassispit, many years old. He is like a log from fire, for he is outside both recluseship and the lay state. Though claiming as bhikkhu state, he's not bhikkhu. He is no bhikkhu. So he's like a donkey following a herd of cattle. He is always nervous, like a man who is everyone's enemy. He is as unfit to live as a dead carcass. Though he may have qualities of learning, etc., he is unfit for the homage of his fellows in the life of purity, as the charnel ground fire is for that of Brahmins. He is as incapable of reaching the distinction of attainment as a blind man is of seeing a visible object. He is as careless of the good law as a guttersnipe is of a kingdom. Though he fancies he is happy, yet he suffers because he reaps suffering, as told in the discourse on the mass of fire in a particular sutra. 155. Now the Blessed One has shown that when the unvirtuousness have their minds captured by pleasure and satisfaction in indulgence on the 5 chords of sense desires, in receiving salutation, in being honored, etc., the result of that karma, directly visible in all ways, is very violent pain, with that karma as its condition, capable of producing gush of hot blood by causing agony of heart with the mere recollection of it. Here is the text. Bhikshus, do you see the great mass of fire burning, blazing and glowing? Yes, Venerable Sir. What do you think, bhikshus? Which is better? The one gone forth should sit down or lie down, embracing a mass of fire burning, blazing and glowing, or that he should sit down and lie down, embracing a warrior noble maiden, or a Brahmin maiden, or a maiden of householder family, with soft, delicate hands and feet? It would be better, Venerable Sir, that he should sit down and lie down, embracing a warrior noble maiden. It should be painful, Venerable Sir, if he sat down and lay down, embracing the great mass of burning fire and blazing and glowing. 156. I say to you, bhikshus, I declare to you, bhikshu, that it would be better far for one gone forth, who is unvirtuous, who is evil natured, or who of unclean and suspect habits, secretive of his acts, he is not an ascetic, and claims to be one. He does not lead the life of purity, claims to do so. He is rotten within, lecherous and full of corruption. So to sit down and lie down embracing that great mass of fire burning, blazing and glowing, why is that? But his doing so, bhikshus, he might come to death or deadly suffering, yet he would not, on that account, on the break-up of a body after death, reappear in states of loss, in any unhappy destiny, in perdition, in hell. But one who is unvirtuous, ill-mannered, ill-natured, and full of corruption, should sit down or lie down, embracing a warrior noble maiden, that would be long for his harm and suffering. And on the break of his body, after death, he would reappear in the states of loss, in an unhappy destiny, in perdition, in hell. 157. Having thus shown by means of analogy of a mass of fire the suffering that is bound up by a woman and has its condition, that indulgence of fire cords of sense desires, by the unvirtuous to the same intent he showed, by the following similes of the horsehair rope, the sharp spear, the iron sheet, the iron ball, iron bed, iron chair, and iron cauldron, the pain that has as its condition acceptance of homage and reverential salutation, and the use of robes, alms, food, bed, and chair, and dwelling by unvirtuous bhikshus. What do you think, bhikshus? Which is better, that one should have a strong horsehair rope twisted round both legs by a strong man and tightened so that it cuts through the outer skin, and having cut through the outer skin is cut through the inner skin, and having cut through the inner skin is cut through the flesh, and having cut through the flesh it is cut through the sinews, and having cut through the sinews it cut through the bones, having cut through the bones, it remained crushing the bone marrow, or that he should be consent to homage to a great warrior nobles, great Brahmin, great householders. And what do you think, bhikshus? Which is better, that one should have strong men wound one's breast with a sharp spear tempered with oil, or that he should consent to the reverential salutation of great warrior nobles, great Brahmins, great householders? And what do you think, bhikshus? Which is better, that one's body should be wrapped by a strong man in an iron sheet, burning, blazing, glowing, or that he should use robes given out of faith by great warrior nobles, great Brahmins, great householders? And what do you think, bhikshus? Which is better, that one's mouth should be prized open by a strong man with a red-hot iron tongue burning, blazing and glowing, that into his mouth should be put a red-hot iron ball burning, blazing and glowing, which burns up his lips and burns his mouth and tongues and throat and belly, and passes out below, carrying with his bowels and entrails, or that he should use his alms food given out of faith by great warrior nobles. And what do you think, bhikshus? Which is better, that one should have a strong man seize him by the head, or seize him by the shoulders, and sit him and lay him on a red-hot iron bed or iron chair, burning, blazing, and glowing, or that he should use a bed or a chair given out of faith by great warrior robes? And what do you think, bhikshus? Which is better? And what that one should have a strong man take him feet up and head down and plunge him into a red-hot metal cauldron, burning, blazing, glowing, to be boiled there in swirl of froth, and he boils in the swirl of froth, to be swept now up and now down and now across, and that he should use a dwelling given out of faith of great warrior nobles. This is all about monastics not having great gifts, and let alone using them. 158. What pleasure has a man of broken virtue, forsaking not sense pleasure, which bear fruit of pain more violent even than the pain in embracing a mass of fire? What pleasure has he accepting homage, who, having failed in virtue, must partake of pain that will excel in agony, the crushing of his legs with horsehair ropes? These are the root texts from which the explanation is given, yeah? We just read through. What pleasure has a man devoid of virtue, accepting salutation of the faithful, which is of the cause of pain, acuter still than pain produced by stabbing with a spear? What is the pleasure in the use of garments for one without restraint, whereby in hell he will for long be forced to undergo the contact of blazing iron sheet? Although to him his alms food may seem tasty, who has no virtue, it is direst poison, because of which he surely will be made for long to swallow burning iron balls. They call charity money, yeah, charity. And when the virtueless make use of couches and chairs, though reckoned pleasing, it is pain, because they will be tortured long indeed on red-hot blazing iron beds and chairs. Then what delight is there for one non-virtuous, inhabiting a dwelling given in faith, since for that reason he will have no dwell to shut up inside a blazing iron pan? The teacher of the world, in him or condemning, describe him in these terms of suspect habits, full of corruption, lecherous as well, by nature evil, rotten too within. So out upon the life of him abiding, without restraint of him who wears the guise of the ascetic that he will not be, and damages and undermines himself. What is the life he leads, since any person, no matter who, with virtue to his credit, avoids it here, as those that would look well keep far away from dung or from a corpse? He is not free from any sort of terror, though free enough from pleasure of attainment, while heaven's door is bolted fast against him. He is well set upon the road to hell. Who else, if not one destitute of virtue, more fit to be the object of compassion? Many indeed and grave are the defects that brand a man neglectful of his virtue. Seeing danger in the virtue and the failure of virtue should be understood as reviewing in such ways as these, and seeing benefits is in perfect virtue should be understood in the opposite sense. 159. Furthermore, his virtue is immaculate. His wearing of the ball and robes gives pleasure and inspires trust. His going forth will bear its fruit. A bhikshu in his pure virtue, his virtue pure, has never feared that self-reproach will enter in his heart. Indeed, there is no darkness in the sun. A bhikshu in his virtue bright shines forth in the ascetic's wood, as by the brightness of the beams the moon lights up in the firmament. Now, if a bodily perfume of virtues bhikshu can succeed in pleasing even deities, what of the perfume of his virtue? It is more perfect than all the other perfumes in the world, because the perfume virtue gives is born unchecked in all directions. The deeds done for a virtuous man, though they be few, will bear much fruit. And so the virtuous man becomes a vessel of honor and renown. There are no cankers here and now to plague the virtuous man at all. The virtuous man digs out the root of suffering in lives to come. Perfection among humankind and even among deities, if wished for, is not hard to gain for him whose virtue is perfected. But once his virtue is perfected, his mind then seeks no other kind than the perfection of Nibbana, the state where utter peace prevails. Such is the blessed fruit of virtue, showing full many a varied form, so let a wise man know it well. The root of all perfection branches. The mind of one who understands thus, shudders at failure in virtue, reaches out towards the perfecting of a virtue. So, virtue should be understood, virtue should be cleansed with all care, seeing with the danger of failure in virtue, and this benefit the perfection of virtue in the way stated. And 161, and at this point, in the path of purification, Vishuddhimagga, which is shown under the heading of virtue, concentration and understanding in the stanza, when a wise man established well in virtue, virtue firstly has been fully illustrated. The chapter called Description of Virtue in the Path of Purification, composed for the purpose of gladdening good people. So there ends the first chapter. I think that'll keep us all going. Just reading and listening can be like that, but if you actually live like this, so all those you can see how meticulous the early disciples, elders were in keeping their Vinaya precepts. So even though they are not explicit, but if one is hinting and one is using the luxury given by the devotees, one shouldn't be using them. One should still, one should. Yeah, I've seen them in Thai monks. They actually have nice house with many beds, but they always sleep on the floor. They never sleep on the bed. Incredible, They invited me. Says, "You can sleep because you are not monk." Gosh, make me feel worse. and of course they have been given this 5-bedroom house, but they never sleep on the bed. They always sleep on the floor. It's just they think it's just that will taint their virtue, Incredible. So we should rejoice our elder Theravadin practitioners, both from the early days, from the Buddha's time up till today, and they definitely are heeding to the very verses we just read. So we'll stop here. Thank you. That's the three. We did 3 sessions on the first chapter. Wonderful, 161 paragraphs. I definitely feel a great blessing from reading this. Of course, there are just as many similar readings in other texts too, but this is beautifully composed by none other than Buddhagosha. He gives the commentary first, and then he gives the actual root verses from various sutras. So thank you very much, everyone. Courage, Manju Shinyawati, Azaman Trabarajalawa, following over the Hezamba, Raja de Mere, Mede Hezelam Bodhicida, Teveranoyadansa, where has been vomiting, Prelevitadi generation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, everyone.